Don't touch this rod. Hello, sit. Complete circle. Sit now. Don't touch the rod. Check after it. Sir, you don't have to much to do. Don't shake.
near people who come and say, Mama, Daddy, give money. We should have but he used to get the foreigners who used to come at the shop to buy the shoes. We go running. Before the girls come down, he comes down and give. So they used to feel he's a hard working guy. So they did. They say, I know so much I have enough to eat.
Settle down. Kindly settle down. After 2 days of exhilarating debates, crazed arguments, and many lasting relationships formed, we have finally come to the end of the BJC MUN. Hope that we were able to make good on our progress and provide a memorable modern learning experience to each and every one of you. If you have taken away anything from this conference, let it be the moments you lobbied hard for your job, the moments of suspense during the press sessions, and most importantly, the moment you found a voice, not only for your country, but also for yourself. Kirtana will now lead us in prayer, after which the Bethany choir and band will lead us in worship. Let us all bow our heads in prayer. Father God, we look back at these two phenomenal days and know without a doubt that it was a gift from you. Coming together in this fashion seemed like an impossibility just a few months ago, and here we are now, in person, celebrating life together and the power of teamwork. We ask that all that we have learned here at the MUN conference will instill in us a depth of character that will shape our futures as responsible human beings who can alter the destinies of communities around us. You encouraged us to be the salt and light in this world. Bless us with wisdom and courage to be the change we want to see. We ask your blessing over the Bethany management as they lead the Bethany community forward. We ask that you bless each candidate here, every faculty member, our chief guest, Mr. Ashok Suta, and every family that each one of us represents. We are ever so grateful for all the blessings and the challenges that were woven together by your sovereign grace. And we know that with your help, we can emerge to become the best versions of ourselves. We thank and praise you for being a shield over us, and we pray all this in the precious name of Jesus Christ. Amen. The Bethany choir will now lead us in praise and worship. By popular demand, we have added dancing generation from yesterday's ceremony.
This song goes out to those of us who have got so used to living a lonely, secluded lifestyle because of the lockdown. We've been worried beneath our shame, breathing but not alive. We've tried to hide our failures, but it all feels like living in a tomb. But through God, we can run out of the darkness, run out of that grave, into a life that is free, into a day that is glorious.
I was dreaming, but not all my failures are tied to
my soul. Now you feel me so that I know Still your hand, change grace and the way you go. I reach out, I will know you call me Savior.
We've been stuck inside our homes for 2 whole years. But now it's time for us to emerge and leave behind all our fears. We won't let ourselves be held back by the things of the past. Because we have nothing to fear, nothing to hide, even when all seems doubtful. In every moment, every triumphant situation, we will lift up our voices and praise God with no hesitation. We won't be shy, we won't hold back. Yeah, we will sing and dance. We will shout, we will scream, we will jump, we will praise and we will shout. And we will dance. And we will shout. And we will dance. And we will shout. And we will dance. And we will shout. Come on. And we will dance.
I now invite our director, Dr. Akash Rai, to introduce the chief guest for this ceremony.
I want to request all you young delegates to respect whoever's behind the microphone. That's our culture in Vietnamese, so I request you to please follow that, especially when our chief guest comes up to speak. About 15 years ago, I had the privilege of being invited to China to start an educational institution over there. And there were many people called to this little province in China. And we flew to Shanghai. It took about 7-8 hours to get there in those days. Then we went by road to a small little place called Wuxi. And I met several people, people who were called to start healthcare and hospitals over there, the IT industry and education. And it so happened that there was a delegation from Mindtree. Now, Mindtree was the organization that our chief guest founded. And he was not there, but the delegates from Mindtree, and I remember this vividly, had nothing but positive, good information to speak about this legend, Mr. Ashok Sudha. I promise you, I'm not using hyperbole or any exaggeration when I say that I remember vividly as if it was just yesterday. I don't remember exactly what they said, but I can tell you that the 6 of them, I believe, 6 of them, they spoke about how caring he is, about how he always lent a ear to listen to new ideas and how they could be creative. And this great man was. And ever after that, I would read his name in the papers ever so often about all the achievements. And now, if you cut to 2022, a few months ago, he got in touch with the school over a small little favor. And this big colossus of a man came to Bethany into my office and asked for this little favor from us. And I remember distinctly, Anosh, Aga, and I were sitting there listening in awe to the impeccable English and the passion that Mr. Ashok Sudha had when he spoke about what he's doing and his plans for the future. This evening, I'm truly privileged to just say a little bit of his achievements. I've cut down many of the things, Mr. Sudha, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm just going to say that he was the chairman of both Happiest Minds and Mindtree, and he led both these organizations to successful IPOs. Prior to that, he led Wipro's IT business from the early 80s to the late 90s, and he made it the second largest IT company in the country. He's been the president of the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, a member of Prime Minister's Task Force for IT, and he was on the Advisory Council for the World Intellectual Property Organization in Geneva. He is a fellow of INAE and CSI, and on the board of the Asian Institute of Management, AIM, Philippines. He is a recipient of multiple awards, IT Person of the Year, Lifetime Achievement Award, and has also won the Quality Ratna Award in 2021. In that same year, in the month of April, Ashok launched SCAN, S-K-A-N, India's first private sector non-profit organization exclusively dedicated to medical research on aging, neurological disorders, and other health-related areas. He established Ashirvadam in 2011, a trust for environmental projects, assistance to the needy. He holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from IIT Roorkee and an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Philippines. A small little special school, the Bethany Special School, where we have about 80 children, has benefited and is the beneficiary of our kids. He is the biggest donor to our school. We are unaided, but we're just excited to know that we have someone like Mr. Suja on our side. The national seller. His hobbies include trekking, the outdoors, yoga, tai chi, meditation, and swimming. Mr. Suta, I request you now to accept a small little token of our gratitude. My young ladies and gentlemen, I now give you Mr. Ashok Suta. Yes.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Akash, for that very generous introduction where you said you were going to cut down a lot. My talk today is titled Fulfilling Your Personal Good. I think it will be important, all of you, as you're going to embark on your lives. And it really brings in line with the words I heard in the which was also very nicely delivered, of discovering your personal best. But before I do begin the talk, I know that all of you are ready to embark on the world. And from what I understood from the students who had come to meet me, many of you have already selected your +2 disciplines and have some idea on the careers you want to pursue. I'm going to want to get a little show of hands to feel of some of you already into the world. And I'm going to quickly list out some things and then I'll come back for the show of hands. So how many of you want to become engineers? How many of you want to do an MBA? How many of you wanted to become all this and club the two together? How many of you want to become doctors or teachers? How many of you want to study economics? How many of you are not sure as yet? I think that's and there's no reason for you to be all having made up your minds already. There's a whole world ahead, and you must explore and do whatever you think in the end you'd like to do and which is good for you. So let me just get a quick show of hands. How many of you feel you want to go into engineering? Quite a few on this floor, not quite as many. Not many more hands coming up there. How many of you want to do an MBA? Okay. A little less, but still quite a very large number. Chartered accountants and lawyers. Okay, becoming lesser and lesser, quite a few in the back. Very good doctors. I'm glad to see quite a few going up for that also. And teachers, get back to your school. Okay, but not too many here. Yeah. Eco, any other entitled degree? Fair enough. Now, I'll ask you another question. How many of you feel that sometime in your career, it doesn't have to be now, maybe even 5 or 10 years later, you may want to become an entrepreneur? So this is the age of entrepreneurship. About 60% of you want to become, whether you become engineers, MBA or whatever. And I suspect that number may keep increasing as you go ahead in your prayers. So let me start with my talk. There has never been a better time to be young, as there are more opportunities and career choices than ever before, and you can sense that. However, too many choices can also lead to confusion, and therefore you need a framework to fulfill your personal potential. My talk today is going to cover preparing for the opportunities that life will bring, developing a sense of purpose for your life and career, mapping your personal characteristics with the requirements of a given job or an industry, and then also a guide on when do you want to make a change in terms of either your role or a job, particularly what you should not do. Finally, I'd like to close with thoughts on self-awareness, and from there, moving on to self-discovery. So for the first item, which is preparing for the opportunities that life will bring, one thing you have to realize today is that we're in a world where technology is virtually disrupting every industry and every business. The pace of change is accelerating. Therefore, it throws up many new opportunities. It also poses the challenge of becoming very agile in whatever you're going to do. Grasping these opportunities will depend on your attitude and your approach. So I would suggest to you 3 or 4 takeaways. First, develop a lifelong learning. As we live in a knowledge era, and that learning will never stop. Through school, through college, and well beyond. You must build trust and learn to trust people and learn to be trustworthy. It takes hard work, integrity, commitment, and sacrifices to build trust. Remember that it takes years to build trust, but one false action can destroy it. You must learn to innovate. Sameness is really death. You have to learn to connect the dots. Innovation is in the interface between what I call as functional blocks. Know the larger picture and how things come together. And this is very important when you have a confluence taking place of so many technologies, so many disciplines. And this is where you learn and look for your opportunities in innovation. Don't be afraid of failure. Everyone makes many mistakes during the course of a career. It's important to learn from your mistakes, but even in spite of learning, you may repeat the same mistake. The important thing regarding mistakes is not to mope on your failure as it develops a negative mindset. I believe, and this is contrary to what a lot of management gurus will tell you, it's even more important to learn from your successes than from your failures. And the reason is that when you focus on your successes, you focus on what's you're really good at, and then you learn to replicate your success. This gives you optimism and self-confidence. I now come to the module on developing a sense of purpose for your life and your career. Increasingly ask yourself one question. Do I have a well-defined purpose for my life and career? It doesn't have to be static. This, in fact, should keep changing as you go along. But you've got to be clear. What is it that I want to achieve? What is it that I want to be? I think that again came up in one of your prayers. And this may change as you go ahead and you progress in your life. You have to work backwards from your personal goals because you set that as a vision, then work back to achieve it. Once you've done that, you set another set of goals. You should have dreams, but the dreams should be grounded in reality. Let your dreams not be bounded by today's possibilities, but you should reset them as you go ahead in life. As an example, could our past President Dr. Kalam ever have dreamt that he will create world-class missiles for our defense systems? He didn't know that, but he went along, he saw new opportunities, He knew things in which he could contribute like literally nobody else. And he began, and that became his passion and mission in life. And that brings you to another point, and choose what you're passionate about. Follow your own strengths. Be true to your success, and success, be true to yourself, and success will follow. Don't get overly influenced because of the job offer. Often, I will say that the highest paying job may not be the best long term. I'll come now to the issue of mapping your own personal strengths and characteristics with the requirements of a job or an industry. There is a mind-boggling range of opportunities. Each of them offers its own career path. So there's no end to it. And it also offers you an opportunity to switch from one another at what is the right time. However, the principles behind the choice of career, as I see them, are first, you need to know yourself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Am I really cut out for a given job or an industry? Let me give you an example. Some people have the ability to grow organizations very quickly and very large and work in a very high and versatile environment. Others are tremendous operational experts. They can cut down costs down to the last penny. And these are two very disparate skills. You'll very rarely find both of these in the same person. You've got to ask yourself, what are the requirements of this given job? And do those map with my skills? Am I geared towards, in a sense, being a growth vehicle? Am I geared towards being an operational specialist who can actually make this a very streamlined organization? Critically examine yourself once again to see those strengths. And also importantly, re-examine what is it that you're passionate about. I keep mentioning that word. Finally, recognize and be very careful to look for a mismatch. One guideline I was give you to choose a high growth area because it will propel you in higher growth. For example, if you see this today, the field of biotech is today what IT was in the yesterday. I saw a lot of hands going up for engineering. And it's not that IT is dead. I mean, it's still growing and flourishing. But if you see the momentum behind biotech, and you see the technologies converging to make biotech such a huge dynamic force which is changing multiple industries, including the organizations which Akash mentioned, my Medical Research Trust, a new entity which I'm shortly going to launch called Happiest Health. All of these opportunities are emerging because of biotech. Next thing I want to talk to you about is what you should be doing in your career path and when you want to change your roles or jobs. And the reason I bring this up is I find that too many young people today change their jobs much too quickly. I think you need to invest in the organization you're building and the internal investing. You need to build equity through that system. So therefore, as you move up in your careers, firstly, plan to be and work towards becoming an expert in that one area where you're known as the specialist, the go-to person in that. You should develop collaboration skills, team management skills, people skills. Your decision-making skills should improve. I have a principle on decision-making which I say should be made with your head, your heart, and your gut, and the gut is your instinct. At the same time, you should be looking for new areas to acquire multifunctional experience. So you become an expert in area, and then after that, you look for multifunctional experience and move on from there to the next phase of your career. In effect, I'm saying the change should be at the right time, not too early and not too late. However, you may find that you made a mistake in your choice. And if that happens, whether it's a choice of company or the choice of role, it's best to acknowledge that, cut your losses early, and move ahead to an environment which will suit you better. I'll come to a few important things which I'd like to leave behind as a thought on what you should never do and what you should not do. The first is taking shortcuts. It's important to do it right the first time and with the highest standards of governance. And that's something you'll encounter as you go forward in the world. And never compromise on integrity. You should never make commitments on which you can't deliver. You should never put your individual aspirations over team goals or the company's goals. Or you should never seek to corner the other. You should never denigrate others to project your capabilities. And you should, in the end also, never become complacent because of early success. That will happen now in a world full of opportunities. And then you suddenly find, hey, I've done so well and so great, you take it easy, and multiple other people will shoot past. I'll come now to really the last module of this talk, and that is self-awareness to self-discovery. And up till now, I have tried to avoid talking of myself. However, in this closing section of my talk, I am happy to share my own personal experience and journey, which went through self-awareness to self-discovery. Shortly after I began my career, I drew up a list of 18 opposing pairs of traits, and this is just to understand myself and see how I was progressing. And I did a self-rating on a scale of 10. I carried on that exercise for maybe 15, 20 years. Some of these traits include being selfish on one side, that's 0, helpful to others, as a methodical and haphazard. It's amazing how a lot of people there may be very, very methodical, given the way I work, but I'm also very haphazard. As you will see when you see the state of my table, not in my office, it's very neat and clean, but my own table in my house, which is the most untidy area in the whole house. But again, it all adds up. And you need to see how you're progressing. If the haphazard is not distracting you, then don't worry. But on the other hand, you have to look at yourself and say, where am I? Being unhappy and happy, I even mapped that out in terms of my happiness levels. And of course, it will go through changes. There may be periods, but then there's a graph on that. Are you on a good upward trend? And then finally, being irritable, getting easily annoyed, maybe losing your temper, and having a pleasant disposition. I call this as my self-awareness phase. The self-discovery phase in January 1991. I was on a vacation to Russia. And I carried with me a book of spiritual exercises called Wellsprings. I must send you that book if you haven't come across, because I've gifted it over 150 people since. It's written by Anthony de Mello, a Jesuit priest. The very first exercise, which is titled The Conclusion, gave key insights into myself. I recorded these in detail in writing, and I kept revisiting them for many years to see what are the real truths for me. The exercise covered issues like the experiences I cherished, convictions I lived by, things I have lived for, and the very last point was my unfulfilled desires. Now, this was in 1991, and here I wrote, one, becoming an entrepreneur, and the second one was writing a book which would influence thousands of people. It wasn't until much later, not till 1999, that I fulfilled the first wish when I started Mindtree and became an entrepreneur. Surprisingly enough, I had become a serial entrepreneur. I wrote my first book, which again Akash referred to in the introduction, which is called Entrepreneurship Simplified from Idea to IPO, which has become a seller. And in that, I could include the distilled experiences of startup, both Mindtree and Happiest Minds. I'm going to write more about that later. I'd like to include experiences on starting Scan and now shortly Happiest Hill. In your life and pursuit of success, I think it's very important that you don't forget about happiness. Aristotle has said that the purpose of life is happiness. Happiness such in the description. To quote Dr. Bronnie Ware, life is a choice. It is your life. Choose consciously, choose wisely, choose honestly, choose happiness, and successful for. Finally, in closing, as you see the world, do so with self-confidence. Do so with the belief that you can and will make a difference. In the words of Anthony de Mello, say to yourself, I am a treasure. Someday, somewhere, someone discovered me and discover yourself. Thank you very much. I think you can mount up. So you can turn it over and just get a few questions from you.
You have a conference mic? Yes. Please just raise your hand, anybody, and the conference mic. Yeah. Sir.
Hello. Hello. Happy to take questions if you like to show.
Sir, what are the issues that you actually faced while you took your
So you're totally wanting to become an entrepreneur, something that you're already thinking of your IPO. One thing, there's nothing like, oh, sir. Okay, so there's, to start with, I think it's going to be very clear on what is the value proposition you want. If you don't have a good value proposition, you're going to be able to come from it. Therefore, it has to be built on past results. And therefore your projection of future results, you must believe it. It's not the same from getting it right. You built a reputation, you've got to have a story. That story is going to be well presented. I want to touch on an aspect of IPOs today, which I think is, in my belief, it's an angle of very important governance. See, the whole world is full of people who are now saying we've become unicorns. And that's everybody's ambition. Let me tell you that. We were 160, and we say in the next 2 years, we're going to have another 50, and we are the unicorn capital of the world. It's an exciting thought, but let me tell you what happens to many unicorns. And they build up value. Sometimes they become unicorns while they're losing $200 million or $300 million. And this market, they're able to go and take that entity public. And when they do that, more often than not, I'd say, at least half of them end up with a decline in prices compared to their listing price. Who's lost? Only the retail shareholder, the common man is lost. The promoters and the guys who put in paid a lot of money. They came in at 10 rupees a share. Doesn't matter to them. If you listed at 200 and it fell to, they've still made a huge profit. So I want you to keep in mind there's a governance angle towards going public. Have a good business, have a set of numbers, have you build a great organization, and then plan to take your company public, whatever you plan to do. But you're certainly looking many years ahead.
I'd like to go as well. My question has less to do with business, more to do with the section on personal development. So you spoke about personal awareness, and you had a scale. So 0 was selfish, and 10 was selfless. I think I'm not sure how many people I speak for, but as we grow older, most of us find being selfless
this as the completely selfless activity, since you said it was a scale of 0 to 10, that being absolutely selfless is the goal. But do you not feel that will leave more vulnerable?
Yeah, you know, I didn't
And it
even
would
say
be
that one is a goal. I didn't actually say it's necessarily a goal. Let's be clear. I just said I was assessing myself. Am I being selfless? And am I being really truly focused on perhaps helping others and so on? So that's just a question of finding where you are. You want to find the right. I would never say that you be selfless to the extent of making a sacrifice that you're sacrificing. Just as you should not be taking credit and getting glory at the cost of others. You don't have to become something that you're saying here, I'm letting somebody else get ahead. That's not selflessness. The selflessness is when you are truly looking and saying, am I working for the greater good of my organization, the greater good of my community, the greater good of all the people who surround me? And through that, you really measure yourself. So if you look at that, then I would say that on that index, if you could be 10, that's one.
I also have a question. Um, how do you, what do you think are the most important points to become an entrepreneur, and how do you manage your formal life and your personal life?
A lot of people interested in entrepreneurship, not surprising because so many fans went. See, there were really two very distinct different parts of your question. And that is how do you manage personal life. So I'll take that part. You could apply to anything, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're anything else. First thing I must tell you is, I hate the work-life balance, particularly in today's age. Because work has invaded in what people call as life, and life is invaded what is work. You're more flexible than you ever had before. You could probably go on a vacation and never stop working, or at least put in a few hours of work a day. But also you don't come back to stuff which is piled up while you were traveling. It's stress or stress. So that's one aspect of work life. I like to think that just as the body needs exercise, so also does your mind and your brain. And if you think of work as exercise for your brain, then you can suddenly see there's no issue of balance. Both have got to be maximized. Okay. Now, let's have a question about preparing for entrepreneurship. Something. Yeah, but you know, I'll tell you one first key factor. And all youngsters, you haven't even finished college. It's not necessary to jump onto an entrepreneurial wagon. I personally believe you must get experience. You don't have to wait till as long as I do. But I waited for the right opportunity. That's important. Because for the first 20 years, I have no engineering. It's only when I got into the IT industry that all these entrepreneurial opportunities opened up. But you don't need to, you know, when you get in at a later stage, there's a huge advantage. It's a reputation. You have got the ability to attract people. You've got the ability to raise funds, which you can't do when you go around and you start bootstrapping at a very young age with very little money. You'll find somebody who came in 10 years later has built a much larger organization because they could, in a sense, do all of what to do. I must be that gentleman because you stood up twice and then one of the young ladies got ahead of you.
So I just wanted to know, when you get to know that this is the right time to enter custom career and getting what?
But you know, firstly, there's no one right time for everybody, as I was indicating. Yeah. So it's not that what's good for one person is good for the other. But now it comes to personal choices. You know, the first thing is if you really build and you see an opportunity, right, is you think is good, and where you believe you can transition your start. I think that is your driving point. And which is why it's surprising that so many entrepreneurs have come out of IT, because you see so much change. That's the other aspect. This change is the new opportunity. I'll give you again to illustrate that. It's told you how technology is changing virtually every industry. So finance is becoming, what was education is gradually becoming edutech, and you have to live with it and compete with it that world. There is not an industry, healthcare, good Lord, tech, life sciences, all driven by technology. And therefore, it is at those intersections that the new opportunities occur. So you look out for the opportunity, build confidence in it. I will say one thing, don't ever jump into it. You believe that when you take an entrepreneurial decision, you have to literally live, breathe, dream that idea, share it with others. And then when you're convinced that that idea will hold good, that you go forward, taking a decision. And it is for decisions like that, that I think that principle of head, heart, and gut comes, where your head will tell you all the pros and cons. It'll tell you what your balance sheet will look like. Your heart tells you, hey, am I really going to enjoy this? Because you've got to remember another thing. Entrepreneurship is talent. It's a huge thing. People think it's very glamorous, but it's very hard work. And you may have to sacrifice for a lot of years. Also, if you work for years and then you start an entity, you probably do it, it's maybe 50-60% of your starting salary. So, of your closing salary of the job. Your new organization can't afford that. So again, you're going to be ready to make decisions. And the gut again says, is this going to work out? Will I look at this 5 years later and look back and say, yes, I did the right decision?
So I have a question. As I heard from those amazing speeches, you certainly have a whole lot of workload. How do you prioritize?
Okay, let me just think of how I personally, I tell you, I have a lot of advantages right now. So I don't think it's a question of saying, how do I prioritize? I think you need to ask yourself how you will prioritize this. And when I say my advantages, and that's one of the benefits of creating large organizations. You have very competent people working with you and for you as a part of your team. And I always say it's easier to run a large entity than it is to run a small entity. And therefore, wait till you can create a large organization, even if you want to become an entrepreneur. Because otherwise, you're doing multi things yourself. If you have to do 5 or 6 different functional roles, it's going to be a hell of a challenge. So now it really comes down to deciding how you prioritize your own time for given jobs, and even as you begin your career. So your challenge will be different from the challenge you're now. I would just say one thing, that while you're working, I think first you have to shed which is really noise, which is distracting you, which is taking away time, which doesn't mean you just focus only on work. But there can be things which are taking up more than you should and not either to your job, career, or even your family. Those ones I think you really need to get. Second way, and it really is a function of time management. And as you're growing your career, what I have found as the best vehicle is empowering others. And what you become more efficient. You improve your productivity by 5%, 10%, 15%. But when you empower others, you're letting them do what you're maybe perhaps now unnecessarily doing yourself. Somebody else can do it. And you have taken time yourself to do higher value added activities. So keep on saying, how do I increase higher value added activities?
We'll just take 2 more questions. We're running out of time, and I don't want Mr. Sudha to be standing for too long.
Sir, so what I have is getting started on studies and joining the workforce soon, what are the skills that a 21st century person needs to do the like whatever career we're going into? What skills do we need to actually pursue it effectively?
In a manner of speaking, I think that's what I've really covered in the talk. One thing I would say is everybody does not have to be a technologist, but you need to know what technology can do for you. In fact, even today, I tell my people, I'm not the IT guy. In fact, I know very little about IT per se. The power of the technology, or when new technology emerges, what is the things that it do? The second thing, and again, I mentioned that, see, you're in a very fast-paced world. You really cannot afford to say, hey, look, I've done this and sit back. Change is there, is the order of the day, and you've got to develop agility to keep pace with that change. So if I give you just these two thoughts, I think that will help you and take you forward in your life. We have two hands, let's take the lady with the feet and then the guy in the corner. See.
I have a query. During the modern, I think skeleton companies are going to be the future of our industry. So, what's your opinion that will it survive for long? Because Zomato and Cola and all are under losses currently. So, do you think if I'm going to start business in the future, so should I start up with the skeleton company or should it be product based?
So again, you're to my mind, if you get the right opportunity, doesn't have to be either product, doesn't have to be service or anything per se. You've got to first ask yourself, what are my capabilities? And I'll give you the difference. A services company like Zomato and others, what is their major skill? You'll be amazed. That skill of theirs is firstly cutting the cost of the bare minimum. You're in a highly competitive world. It's logistics and operations so that you can get your delivery to your customer in 10 minutes or 18 minutes. And it is an important skill. Everybody doesn't have that. But somebody who's creating a product, again, today we're moving into what is called as a platform-based world. The beauty of platforms is that you can make money while you sleep. And that's what actually Amazon and Microsoft and all of these guys running cloud-based operations, what are the guys doing? Hardly any management. You created a platform and they connect your buyer and your user. And there you are, you can generate billions of dollars of revenue. So you have to look at the nature of the opportunity, look at the skill you have, but everybody can't create a Microsoft and Amazon. Can you create a smaller one? And then you talk about product and service. Let me tell you that the distinction between the two is also blurry. And that is because you've got something called software as a service. So you're delivering a product, but you're delivering it as a service. The lady at the back, you want to ask another question?
Sir, so then what's the reason that Zomato and Ola and others kind of companies, like tech companies are all under crash? Their markets are crashing, their IPOs are under.
Yeah, well, I touched on that in the beginning. I'll tell you what. I don't want to make a negative statement about all of them, but many of them have been driven by desire to create. They are propelled by the financials. Somebody says, I'll give you another $200 million. Don't worry if you're making $200 million plus. By the time they've raised 500 million, they're already a unicorn. But by then they're still raising and losing $300 million. It's not a sensible model. But it doesn't mean it won't survive. It doesn't mean, but who's getting hurt? The person who's getting hurt, as I mentioned earlier, is the retail shareholder. I would never allow that to happen to my companies. I start with the basis that on the day of listing, I must get a 30% increase in the price at the end of the day. And when that happens, you know what happens after that? And people say, I better buy it. And then before you know it, you've got a 200% appreciation. But if you started with 150%, or beyond what it should be, and it came down to it, you actually lost. So if you get the flow of what I'm saying, I must take the lady in the green number.
Sir, my question for you is, the book which you wrote, how has it made an impact on your life?
On my life.
Yes, sir.
I hope it's made an impact on other people's lives. That was the objective that I had, that the book should influence a lot of other people. So if you see this particular book, it's called Entrepreneurship Simplified. And like a lot of you have been asking questions on entrepreneurship, I think it gives you a lot of the fundamentals. To my mind, it could be a wonderful, and I'm not trying to market the book to any of you, but since so many of you on it seem to be interested in entrepreneurship, it gives you all the building blocks. And one thing about entrepreneurship is, or for that matter, even a career, when you become a CEO, it's not good enough to say that I'm now only a functional specialist. You've got to have the ability to manage multiple functions. And therefore, it gives you the fundamentals of all the approaches of creating a company. And the subtitle to the book is all the way from generating the idea, which I clarified is linked with identifying an opportunity, and then finally concluding.
Put your hands together for Sir.
Thank you, sir, for your words of advice and career guidance. I'm sure this will help us all be better versions of ourselves. The Bethany musicals have the reputation of being the highlight in Bangalore's annual calendar. From 2003, Bethany High has enthralled audiences with 9 musical theater extravaganzas, ranging from Disney classics like The Little Mermaid to even Tony Award-winning Broadway blockbusters like In the Heights by Lin-Manuel Miranda. This December 15th, 16th, and 17th, Bethany is blasting through the lockdown sabbatical with an over-the-top musical, The School of Rock, by Andrew Lloyd Webber. And to give you a taste of what is to come, we have our very own YouTube sensations, the strikingly talented group of 9 standard girls from the Bethany Heights in Jaipur, who simply call themselves the Gift Set. The song we are going to sing for you today. Check, 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 check. Hello, everyone. The song we are going to be singing for you today is from the musical School of Rock, and it is called If Only You Would Listen. It's about how parents can be so busy sometimes, and the children don't even get to talk to them. This is a slow song in the musical, but we thought we'd highlight the song because I'm sure most of us can relate to it, considering the work from home scenarios that our parents have had in the last 2 years. The lyrics of the song are simple yet powerful. I've got so much to say, I've got so much to share, I've got so much inside, joy, anger, and pride. If only you would listen. You could prove that you care if only you would listen. You always talk all the time. Never let me get in a word. I wish I had a time for every thought I've swallowed. No matter what it is that I do, it's like I just can't seem to I've got so much to say. If only you would listen. I've tried every which way. And still you never listen. Can't you see I'm hurting? I couldn't be more clear. But I promise one thing, I'll make you hear. You know I tried to explain. I'm not the kid you want me to be. And yet it's all in vain. You just don't want us to know. You think you know what I'm all about. And yet you just keep shutting me out. I've got so much to share. If only you would listen, you could prove that you care. If only you would listen, I'm not gonna beg you. You'll never see a tear. But I promise one day I'll make you hear. See one day I'm gonna make you hear me. Gotta find a way that you are gonna see. Got so much to say. I'm gonna make you hear me. Maybe then you'll listen. You gotta listen. You need to listen. You better listen. I've got so much inside. If only you would listen. Joy and anger and joy and anger. If only you would listen. It's not much I'm asking. I only want your ear. Yeah, I promise one day I'll make you hear. It's not much I'm asking. I only want your ear. And I promise one day I'll shake you so damn hard that at last I'll wake you. Yeah, I promise one day I'll make you hear. And don't forget, December 15th, 16th, and 17th at St. John's Auditorium for Manila. Thank you. That's a wonderful, wonderful performance. Thank you, Kisset. We can now have the announcement. Please welcome with Ms. Harshit.
Apologies about the delegates, but well, good afternoon. Thank you for being here once again, delegates. Our conference would not be what it is without you. Thank you to everyone else here, our wonderful chief guest, our customer, everyone else. Thank you for being here. So the last is you have done an incredible job, if I may say so myself. And apologies if this speech sounds a little improvised because, well, it is. I know we delegated a lot of people to thank and not much time left, so I'll get right to it. First, thank Officer for essentially spearheading this conference, for supporting it from day one, as well as the principal of Bethany Junior School, Bethany High School, Collegiate Bethany Junior College, everyone else, Angie ma'am, everyone else, every other teacher who have put in the effort that they have to make this conference work. So a big round of applause, please. moving on, I'd also like to thank the phenomenal organizing committee for all my antics for the multiple hours every single 3 months to put this conference together. So a loud round of applause for the organizing committee. Definitely would not be what it was without them. And that's next, of course, the executive board. One of the of the Bangalore MUN circuit who have graciously agreed to be here and made this conference what it has been. And lastly, but certainly least, the delegates who have participated. And thank you, delegates. And if I may, BJC MUN 2022 has been, to my knowledge, the largest MUN conference in the last 2 years since the beginning of the pandemic back in 2020. And that would not be possible without every single one of you. So thank you for being here. That being said, delegates, I do not want to take up much of your time. All I will say is reiterate something that I did in the opening ceremony. At the beginning of the conference, I encourage you to compete sincerely and to compete to win. And I truly believe that you, as I have seen myself over the last 2 days, have given it your all. And if you truly have, and if you truly believe that you have the potential to be the best delegate, that is all that matters. Each of you is going to go away from this conference learning a lot more than you would have otherwise if you'd just been here for the sake of participation. And for that, I thank you for believing in yourself and giving it your best. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite on stage the executive boards of each of the committees to give out the awards for their respective committees. Yeah. First up, we have the executive board of the UNPA. Please come on stage. And once again, delegates, just so you know, the United Nations General Assembly, the moderator of the committee, could not make it to the conference due to some personal reasons. And we had a couple of members of the organizing committee, Sarah, if you will, and Zed, who is down there, who really helped out the executive board in their duties. And they've done a wonderful job. Come on, Ken, you can join us on stage. They've done a wonderful job of helping the executive board and have been instrumental throughout the coming to support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Afternoon to the dignitaries. It's been an incredible couple days. I'm sorry I'm hoarse, I'm exhausted, but so I'll try to make this. But before I go into announcing the awards for this committee, I cannot not thank the members of the logistics of this committee. They were absolutely phenomenal. So we're so very grateful to everyone. You guys for running around with mics. It's a huge committee. You were telling us exactly what is going on. You're bringing us food when we needed it. Thank you so much for everything. So for this committee, the special mentions in no particular order. Delegates, please rise in your seats. The delegate of Iran. The delegate of Russia. The delegate of Saudi Arabia.
And the commendable delegate award goes to the delegate of France.
Delegate of France, come on stage, please. Join us on stage.
All right, so outstanding. I just like to say before the name that everybody in committee, including Akshit and I,
were shocked to know that she was a first timer. The delegate of Burkina Faso.
All right. So this was an incredibly close committee, and I didn't even realize how close it got until the last resolution was presented and I tabulated all the scores. The difference between the best delegate and the outstanding delegate was about 1.2 points. And the best delegate award goes to the delegate of Turkey.
A loud round of applause. Also, also, I request that the EB members remain on stage. Yeah, thank you. All right, next, we have the Executive Board of the Historic Security Council. Delegates, if you could please maintain decorum. Delegates have noticed throughout the closing ceremony, and I do recognize that you're all really eager for your awards. But please keep in mind that everyone here on stage, everyone who worked really hard for this conference, has put a lot of effort into planning this closing ceremony, and they are here to improve your experience as well. So delegates, I do understand that it might be a couple of hours, but please, if you could have some respect for that and maintain decorum till the end of the conference, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I announce the awards, I would like to thank the institution. I would like to thank our chief guests for the address they gave, the logistics members for making the committee as slow as well as they did. Thank you guys, and all the delegates for giving us due day for that. I will now hand to the chairperson of the committee to announce the special mentions. Please rise where you're seated.
Just to add on to what Aditya just said, I would also like to thank all the other EB members present here today, because so many of them helped me run committee when Aditya was not available. And after that, they all ensured that committee ran very smoothly. So I'd just like to thank all of them. Have a round of applause. This committee naturally was extremely fun because it was a crisis committee, and all the delegates, poured their hearts into their directives and came up with the most creative ideas to, kill people, take over countries, and do all sorts of things. With that being said, I will start to give out the special mentions. Delegates, please rise in your places and sit down after that. Okay, so in no particular order, the special mentions of the Historical Security Council are the delegates of Israel, delegate of China, delegate of Germany, and the delegate of Australia.
And the commendable delegate of the Historic Security Council at this year's conference, please come up on stage to be facilitated, was the delegate of Austria. And the honorable delegate at this year's conference was the delegate of Egypt.
And the best delegate award goes to the delegate of Pakistan. Congratulations, delegate.
Okay. Thank you. And I once again request the executive board to please remain on stage. Please remain on stage. All right, delegates, before we continue, I'd like to invite back on stage the winner of the previous committee, the delegate of Turkey, if I'm not mistaken, of the UNGA. Could you come back to collect your gallery? Thank you, delegate. All right, delegates, the next committee we have is the United Nations Human Rights Council. I invite the executive board.
Okay, good evening, delegates. I'll keep this really short and simple. I'd like to thank a few people before I get on to the awards. Firstly, I'd like to thank the institution for hosting this conference. I think I speak for all my fellow EB members when I say the hospitality we received here is incomparable. We've never experienced such consideration of guests and food. I'd like to thank the faculty as well as the organizing committee I'd like to congratulate you on pulling off a successful conference. I'd like to move on to thanking my fellow EB members, specifically Aljit and Vanshika, as well as the logistic members of our committee. I'm not sure if you know, but UN actually had over 90 delegates, and the logistics, it would have been impossible to pull off a committee without that. Last but not least, I'd like to thank my delegates. I might have been a little strict at times, but congratulations, you all did really well. Thank you for giving us 2 days of fun debate. I'd like to hand over the mic to my vice chair for awards.
All right, so we're going to move on with the awards, right? So the special mention, probably the special mention to all the way to the best delegate. The competition was really high, and it was hard marking the delegate, honestly. And we had a press session, and that broke the tie. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give the special mentions in order. So the first special mention goes to the delegate of Belarus. Good job. The second special mention goes to the delegation of France. And the third special mention goes to the delegation of Russia. Now, we'll be moving on to the commendable delegates. So the commendable delegation, please come on stage, right? So the commendable delegation goes to the delegation of UK. Now, we'll be announcing the outstanding delegate of this, the delegation of this very committee. Now, the point difference between the best delegation and the outstanding delegation was like very little, barely like any 2 to 3 points, maybe. Now, the outstanding delegation goes to none other than the delegation of Ukraine.
Okay, and finally, the best delegate award goes to the delegation of Syria.
Thank you once again to the effective board of UN HRC. Now moving on to the final committee of BJC MUN 2022, we have the UN ODC and the executive board of the UN.
Good evening, everybody. Before I move on to announce the awards, just a few people I'd like to thank. First of all, I'd really like to mention my appreciation towards my fellow EB members, Lara and Desu. It's been absolutely amazing over the past 2 weeks, supporting me throughout. I think a pretty large committee, one of the better bigger ones that I've seen over the past couple of years. And I'd also like to mention my gratitude to Sanjit. And in fact, all of us would like to for his immense efforts in the conference and also getting in touch with us and inviting us and giving us the opportunity to be here. So thank you, Sanjit, for that. And most importantly, to the organizing committee and the institution as a whole for pulling off an amazing MUN, which is in terms of organizing standards, one of the best that I've seen throughout my career as and also a huge round of applause to all the logistics members, not only just in my committee, in every committee, for being absolutely amazing over the last 2 days. In terms of my committee in general, I just like to say that though it was a lot of first timers in my committee, it was absolutely amazing to see how they grew from day one to day two. Though they were a bit overwhelmed on day one, their growth and performance on day two just made me so happy to be a part of that committee and be the chairperson of that committee. So without further ado, I'd like to call upon my moderator to announce the special mentions.
So I'm going to be announcing special mentions for the UN ODC. Please stand where you will be seated and bask in the glory. So in no particular order, the first special mention goes out to the delegate of Belgium. Our next special mention goes out to the delegate of Colombia. The third special mention for our committee goes out to the delegate of Bangladesh. And finally, for our fourth special mention, it goes out to the delegate of China.
Good evening, delegates. Before I announce the awards, I would just like to thank the delegates of the UNODC and the festival management for making us feel so special and so welcome after 2 years at an online conference. Thank you guys so much. So without any further ado, to announce the commendable delegate awards for the UNODC, the awards in no particular order go to the delegate of the United States of America, and to the delegate of Pakistan. Congratulations, delegate. Well deserved.
Delegates, I like to say that this was one of those committees where the top two positions were. Once in a while, you get one of these wherein the delegate who's leading the committee was so far ahead of the rest of the committee, and you just have to applaud and appreciate the efforts put in by that delegate. This is the reason the UNODC will not have a honorable delegate award. We will have one best delegate award. So the best delegate for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime goes to the delegate of the Russian Federation.
I now invite our principal, Mr. Robert Gill, to honor the Secretary General and the Executive Board members.
Delegates, a loud round of applause for your executive board. Keep going, delegate. The last few days would have truly been impossible without that. Thank you, sir. Executive board members, please return to your seats. While we prepare to announce, delegates, I mean executive board members, my bad. Sorry, used to calling you guys that. Please return to the center of the stage. While we take a picture with all the dignitaries present here. So, ma'am, please join us on stage. Yeah, thank you. Please return to chairs, everyone. Yes, I can hear that. All right, delegates, soon we will be announcing the most awaited award, the Best Delegation Award. All right, delegates, so for the last couple of days, I've had the opportunity to visit every single committee. I've had the opportunity to see you all in action. I've had the opportunity to see what a wonderful job your executive board has done. I've had an opportunity to see what a wonderful job the logistics members have done. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to taste a lot of the lovely food we had. So during that time, I've had the opportunity to conduct the feedback sessions for all of the committees. And I wanted to share a little bit of that with everyone present here. So delegates, if you enjoyed the conference, give us a loud round of applause. If you enjoyed the food, give us a loud round of applause. If you enjoyed the way your executive board treated you, how they've helped you learn, give us a loud round of applause. If you enjoyed the press conferences in every committee, give me a loud round of applause. And finally, if you are going to continue running? If you are, give us a loud round of applause. And I take it from that response that BJC MUN 2022 has been a grand success. So thank you one and all. With that, I invite our pastor, to hand the certificate and the trophy for the best delegation of BJC MUN 2022, the delegation of Pakistan from Malayadati International School. Please join us in stage. Congratulations, sir. Come on, delegates, all of you, everyone from Malayadati, join us on stage. Your best delegation for BJC MUN 2022. Right. Thank you, delegates. Please, Mr. Jesse, thank you, sir. Thank you. Right, congratulations once again. Congratulations once again, delegates. And with that, we have come to the end of BJC MUN 2022. And what has been the combination of nearly 3 months of efforts on everyone's behalf. And with a heavy heart, thank by the powers vested in the Secretary General, I hereby declare the conference closed.
ಆಮೇಲೆ ಯಾರು ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿ ಲೇಟರ್ ಗೋ ಔಟ್ ಬಡ್ಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಬಾಂಬೆ ಬಡ್ಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಿಲ್ಲ
ಹೌದು
Now, delegates, kindly be seated. Please be seated, delegates.
Delegates, you bear with us so long. I'm sure you can afford another 2 minutes. Kindly rise in your places. Thank you.
We have now come to the end of this Model United Nations Conference. Please rise as we show our allegiance to our nation. Kindly place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me, bold and strong. India is my country. All Indians are my brothers and sisters. I love my country. And I am proud of its rich and varied heritage. I shall strive to be worthy of it. I shall respect my parents, teachers, and all elders, and treat everyone with courtesy. My country and all my people.
ಹಾಸ್ಟೆಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದೊಂಥರ ಕ್ಲಿನಿಕಲ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಇದ್ದಂಗ ಆಯ್ತು, ದುಡ್ಡು ಅರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಆಯ್ತು, ರಿಸ್ಕ್ ಲೆಸ್ ಇದ್ದಂಗ ಆಯ್ತು.
Lies my happiness. Jai Hind. Thank you, delegate.
ಹೌದು.